Why are we still trying to appease this vocal minority, even though the evidence is so overwhelming about where public opinion is on this?
Yeah, and you said the science was a little bit grey, but actually the science is not grey at all. There is no peer-reviewed science in the world that shows that you can mitigate against all male puberty benefit. So, yes, we can reduce it a little bit by reducing testosterone, but once a male has gone through male puberty, all those benefits are there. And in fact, even just, the Q angle, which is actually the shape of your pelvis, gives you a benefit if you're a male over a female. So we can't remove any of those things. And what we're asking at the moment is for females to compete in their sport with a known disadvantage, which is just madness, because we wouldn't do that to men. Every time there's something that comes along that might give one group of men an advantage, it is removed immediately, whether that's a pair of training shoes or whatever. But we're just expected to move over. And what's really frustrating is that transgender men, so biological females that have transitioned, still carry on and compete in the women's category. So, if they can compete in the women's category, I don't really understand why transgender women, biological males, cannot carry on and compete in the male category. This is about men being more inclusive and welcoming of transgender women in the male category.
Yeah, we spoke a lot at the start of my show anyway about strikes. We're about to be clobbered, aren't we, by the RMT, and they're going to bring the country to a halt. But I'm starting to wonder whether female strikes in women's sport is the only way out of this, because if every single female athlete got together, or certainly the vast majority of them got together and said, look, let's stop this madness, I'm not competing now unless this stops, then surely that weight of public pressure will be greater than the weight of public pressure coming from the trans lobby.
Yeah, you think so, wouldn't you? The difficulty is, as you know, there is so much pressure from this very, very loud minority, into the point where people just get cancelled for voicing a concern, whether that's about child safety or safe spaces, or rape centres being just for biological females, whatever. We get absolutely hammered. And these young girls are very reliant on their sponsors, very reliant on their governing bodies who are telling them not to speak, and they're just worried that they will lose their careers. So it then falls to those people that have been retired, a bit like me, and then they worry about their earning capacity as well. So very few people do stick their head above the parapet. And 5 years ago, I wrote to the IOC with 60 of my friends that were all Olympic medalists and world record holders. And only of all those 60, just saying, can we do the science first, please, before we change the rules? Only 3 have ever put their head above the parapet. So, I don't speak to anybody that doesn't agree in the world of sport that this is not right and this is not fair. Yeah. But trying to get the governing bodies to listen is something else. And the International Cycling Committee that brought rules out today reducing testosterone to 2.5 for 2 years, it's just ridiculous. I mean, women are not, men with different levels of testosterone. We are totally different biological sexes. So, we've got to come up with better solutions. And I'm hoping that FINA at the weekend, which is the International Swimming Body, are going to come up with some better rules on Sunday. We'll just have to really hope. We seem to live in a society these days, Sharron, where if you want to do something, you can just do it. There seems to be a certain level of entitlement. So if I want to, I'm not going to drag you down this rabbit hole, but if you want to just move to any country you want to, you should maybe be allowed to do it regardless of how you've got there, for example. If you want to say that you're a particular gender, just say you're a gender, you should be able to do it. If you want to transition, you should be allowed to compete in women's sport, etc. Do you actually think that's a bit selfish? Well, my feelings on the subject are that we can't feel our way out of a reality. So, if there's an under-12s race and there's a 15-year-old that wants to feel his way into the under-12s, you can't do that. If you're a heavyweight boxer and you want to feel your way into the bantamweight, you can't do that. If you're a masters competitor or you have a disability and you are in a particular category at the Paralympics, you can't feel your way out of that category into a better category where you have an advantage. And that's the whole reason why we have male and female sport, because otherwise just young males would win everything. So I don't believe that feeling should be allowed to trump a biological reality and a fact.
Can I ask your view on Caster Semenya, the South African runner? Now, I'm not going to claim to be all over the science on that. I think that was a lot more complicated than what we're talking about now, for example. There was quite a lot of stuff going on there. But given that lady was really put through a lot, basically to decide whether or not she was, I think, male or female testosterone levels. Whereas now, if you are born a bloke and still have your tackle, you can compete in a university swimming gala in the US. I mean, there's a massive difference there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, that this isn't about someone that's gone through surgery, that's gone through years of identifying as a female. This is someone who's literally just identifying today and going into the women's competition. That's what's been able to happen, up until very recently, and is still happening to a degree in America, because you only have to reduce your testosterone levels down to 10 nanomol. The average female, even an elite athlete like myself, was only 1 nanomol of testosterone. And that's through my whole life. That isn't for the last 2 years before I raced. Whereas now, we're saying, well, reduce it for 2 years. Well, what about all the 21 years that you've had previous? You can't just wipe them off the board. So I just don't believe that we can use testosterone as a system. Castor is more complicated because it's what they call differences of sexual development. So castor actually is XY. So castor is male, which most people don't actually realise again.
I'm not sure she realised it though initially, did she? I don't know. I think was that kind of the point. I don't think she.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't know. Yeah. Absolutely did not know. So Castor was born in a part in South Africa where they literally just picked her up as a baby and went, "This is a little girl," because she had internal testes. And so until she went through male puberty, they didn't know. But she did know once she got to male puberty. And that's been a very complicated area because that's through, no fault of Castor's whatsoever. But that level is set at 5 nanomoles. So you've got this minefield going on of all these different sports, of all these different levels, and it just doesn't work. And there's no science behind any of it.
No.
None at all.
Sorry, I've just had a little bit of something. I'm going to get them to repeat it in my ear because I believe this is news that's just come through. So, sorry. So, go on, hit me. The UCI, which is a cycling body apparently, they've doubled the qualifying period for transgender cyclists to compete. There we go. We got through that. Cheers. What do you make of that?
That's what I was telling you, Patrick. They've brought it down. They've increased it to 2 years, 24 months, and they've reduced it down to 2.5 nanomoles. It was 1 year at 5 nanomoles. But my point is it makes no difference because once you've gone through male puberty, even if you eliminated testosterone altogether for 2 years, it wouldn't eliminate the benefit that you've had going through male puberty.